Paulo.
Very much.
I think in the context of that final question and behavioral change requirements that have come up, it's nearly quite fitting that as we move from a more rural and agricultural conversation, does some of the answer lie in the nature connectedness conversations we're having in our urban centers and how we can reintegrate nature into where we are living and how we are living in our cities? And can that start that conversation and more compassion for the farming and the forestry communities? But I won't start you on that. That's a bit of an unfair curveball. Before I introduce Paulo, just to mention, Paulo was to be joined on stage today by Vera Enzi Zechner. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. Unfortunately, Vera couldn't make it. Bad case of flu, as we all know, is coming back and hitting us all stronger, left, right, and center. Vera's with Grunstattgrau in Austria and was going to speak on water sensitive design in urban nature based solutions and represent the water management side. But Paulo is more than capable of filling that space.
I will try.
So Paulo himself, he works to promote vegetation as a mandatory building material. Green roofs, green walls, gardens and parks, along with all nature-based and promoting solutions, are his areas of expertise. He's always worked in landscaping and nature-based solutions for cities. And he's currently CEO of Neoturf in Portugal and president of the European Federation for Green Roofs and Green Walls and Green Roofs Associations. Apologies, I've gotten that wrong before a few times. He's been involved in hundreds of these projects in Portugal and abroad, and I'd wager that a lot of those have involved water management. So Paulo, I'd invite you to please tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, and trends you're seeing in your sector.
Okay, thank you very much to invite me to be here. So I started in 1999, so 25 years ago, and we were just a couple of guys just finishing the studies in agronomy. We had a 200,000 kilometers van and one laptop in a room. And yeah, the idea was to create a company at that time that could deliver not only the usual landscaping services, but starting to talk about nature-based solutions. At that time, the word didn't exist, but we were focused on green roofs and green walls and the possibility to install plants over the constructions inside the buildings and to have nature more near us. So right now, after 25 years, we are more than 30 people working, very technical, high technical department on agronomy and landscape architects. And luckily, we succeed and the dream came true. We still need the usual landscape services because it's not possible to live only from these green roofs and walls in the Portuguese market. But a lot of things happen, and it's a very good moment. I was very inspired for the last speakers because I think something that is common in all of the presentations, and it is very inspiring, is that we didn't follow any trend on the market. We really create the market. We were one of the ones that created the market, and I think this is very inspiring also for the policy makers, because it's and we are assisting this luckily in the European Commission with a lot of good laws and regulations that are coming. So it's time for action. We did it when we began. We thought it was time for action, and we could do it. And it was not always easy, but we were focused on what we need to do.
I think that's almost reflected in the size of your own organization. You mentioned Neoturf now has 25 to 30 staff members, which has actually surprised me right now. I wouldn't have imagined that green roofs or green walls organizations are that large. Is that, or what is a common size of organization you're finding amongst your members in the EFB? Are they scaling and growing? That's reflective of the demand, right?
Yeah, we don't do only green roofs and green walls. Yeah, so some markets more in the Central Europe, companies can really work only on green roofs and green walls, and they can have very good business volumes. But in the southern countries, it's almost impossible. So Spain, Portugal, Italy, so the southern the Mediterranean countries, this is a combination of usual landscaping, so gardening, and also nature-based solutions. Yeah.
Earlier this year, in Horizon Nua, we did a bit of work in Ireland with, I mentioned Roisin Byrne here of the Irish Landscapes Institute. We brought together professional bodies from engineers, planners, landscapers to work with the Department of Housing on the issue of rainwater runoff and treatment in urban nature-based solutions. You and I recently spoke of the needs for urban irrigation, and that in our cities across Europe, we can often be guilty of wasting water and not reusing it. Would you care to speak on that?
Yeah, that the answer it's not short. So maybe
we have time.
I think maybe we will start for simple notions that sometimes we forget. So there are no animals without plants, and plants can live without animals, and there is no plants without water. So plants and water are exactly the same thing, and then animals. So looking at this, it's really strange for me that we don't look to the water crisis. And the water crisis, we are not, as we know, the planet is not losing water. We have the same amount of water, but the way the water is moving around the planet is different. But many countries, and I will take again the example of Portugal, we have an average of 500 millimeters of rain per year. This is a lot of water, but we are always in between extreme event of rain and drought. And we don't apply any strategy to collect this water and infiltrate the water again. And what concerns me is that we don't have really a strategy around these issues. And at the end, what we face is those kind of threats. People shouting, saying, "Okay, let's switch off the irrigation systems. Let forget the gardens and let's
hose bans." We have hose bans in Ireland every summer.
Yeah, let's put some stones instead of gardens. And this is the beginning of the desert. And when we reach that point, what we need to do? Take water again, plant again, have vegetation again, infiltrate water again. So for me, it's very easy, and I think we cannot reach somehow environmental anxiety that we need to make everything. No, we need to make what is possible and what we know it's possible and it's needed. So, for instance, to give you an example, a building should not deliver water for the municipality system. A building should collect the water on the green roof, then some of the water will be evapotranspirated to the clouds and rain again in other place. The surplus of water should be reused, and if we have more water, should be infiltrated in the soil, and so fulfilling again the reserves that we have underwater. That is the main fresh water that we have. So it's like 8 or 9 times more than rivers and lakes, representing the underground water. So missing this is missing the essential things. And this can be done, and it's not really an important part of the budget of the building. It's a minimum part.
That's fantastic. And I think we were talking earlier as well about the role of legislation and policy. Quite often, I guess we discussed it with Engineers Ireland and the Landscape Institute as well, that in urban nature-based solutions, we can often forget about the cost of maintenance of some of these solutions, but there's also the monitoring and maintenance, in relation to the enforcement of it. So how do we work with local authorities and municipalities to ensure that standards are upheld in the urban nature-based solutions, green buildings sector?
Yeah, again, it's a long answer, but so I think I'm one of the ones that say we need to have more top-down approaches, even if we need to have bottom-up approaches also. So a mix, but we really need to have top-down approaches, because for many years, we are in my experience, I'm more than 20 years participating in forums and conferences, and always everyone in the coffee break saying, okay, we already know this, why we still are discussing these things year after year. And so if we have enough science knowledge, if we already know, and obviously we have some doubts, but there are many things that we already know that could be applied in an urban environment, in the construction environment, why not to make this something that is mandatory? I can give you an example. The fire system of a building before the Second World War didn't exist.
Sure.
And now we have legislation that really forced the buildings to have this kind of systems. Does anyone ask the price? Does anyone ask the maintenance cost of the fire? And
it's a grudge payment, but you just get on with it, yeah.
And also it's luckily we don't use that system on most of the buildings. And if we compare to the urgency that we have on nature, we are already burning.
And so we've talked about the need for knowledge and skills, education across a number of these conversations today. Do you see in that respect, is there a role for the EFB or for other nature-based enterprises, perhaps in the education space, to work with educating those in planning, in the municipalities and local authorities that operate our cities? And have you any good examples from the industry of how that's being done?
Yeah, I think the European Federation is a huge network. We are almost 1,500 stakeholders, and it's a mix between municipalities, companies, and also research institutes and universities. So we really represent a lot on these issues. So we can deliver, and we are delivering in different countries, and our network is enlarging to other countries, and we have a perspective of Europe as a continent, not only the European project. And yes, we have guidelines that we are delivering for the different countries that start being recognized as the main documents, for instance, to make the project construction and maintenance of green roofs. And this is very important, because right now, when we are talking about the need to have more professionals on these issues, that there is a lack right now. And let's imagine this is growing exponential. We will need, and universities and schools will need to make a huge effort to have more experts on these issues. Otherwise, what can happen is that you will have all the environmental very positive to install these solutions, and you will not have enough skilled people to make it properly and to have the performance that you expect from these solutions. And this is something very important that we always highlight in the European Federation. Don't ask for a green roof. Ask for a green roof with a certain performance that is needed for that place. So if your problem is in an area, it's flooding, you must ask for a green roof that can collect a certain amount of water, if the structure can handle, obviously. So you need to ask for performance, not only for nature-based solutions, and this is very, very important.
That's great. We'll be wrapping up shortly, so if anybody has any questions, just please prepare them, and we'll send the mics around. But one just final point or question, Paulo, in relation to Oisín's findings, he was saying that a lot of the nature-based enterprises have experienced an increase in demand. You mentioned particularly since COVID, there's a more receptive manner out there in relation to urban nature-based solutions. Is that being reflected across your members and in your own business's experience?
Yes, we feel that our network, so all the companies that are engaged in this industry, are growing a lot and have the same difficulties to grow the ability and the capacity to do more. So this is trending on all the countries around Europe. So it's not only some places, even if some markets are more mature, like Germany or Austria. But all around Europe, the business is growing a lot. Yeah,
it's good. I mean, it's a great note to end on. And I have seen the Irish Green Building Council here are recruiting themselves at the moment. So there's green building organizations recruiting. It's a positive sign. So, any questions for Paulo before we wrap up? Great.
So I actually took the opportunity to make a comment, if that's okay, because I heard the word urban mentioned. So my name's Alice Charles. I'm a director for cities planning and design in Europe, but I also lead our global strategic partnerships with international organizations, mayoral networks, civil society and academia. The mention was made of, is there any guidance out there to help urban officials? So I actually wanted to point to some that we've done with those organizations. So the first is with the World Economic Forum. We produced the Biodiverse Cities Framework, which will give you a huge amount of evidence of the economic benefit and indeed the co-benefits of focusing on nature. But equally, we've done a lot of work with C40. So C40, in case you're not familiar with it, is a mayoral network of 97 of the leading cities across the world. And whether it's London or Milan or Stockholm or Paris, all of the mayors are heavily involved in that network. It's funded by Michael Bloomberg. Some of the work that we've done there, earlier it was mentioned about consumption. There's a whole piece of work looking at the future of urban consumption. So specifically looking at the biggest drivers of consumption in an urban context and what we must tackle, fashion being the highest. But it also, we did further work recently, which was looking at the concept of creating green and thriving neighborhoods, which many of those cities are implementing. They're trying to implement climate action at the neighborhood level. Taking it down a level to nature, there's been a huge focus on urban rewilding. And indeed, we produced a whole strategy with those cities in the last year, which is focused on urban rewilding. So I thought it might be useful if there's anybody who's at a local authority level to have a look at. And just to say, the reason we focus on cities is 80% of our GDP is in cities, 75% of our emissions are in cities. The majority of the world's population live in cities. And actually, they also are increasingly encroaching on nature. So it's critical, if we're going to protect nature, enhance nature, and restore nature, that action starts in our urban areas.
Thank you very much, Alice. I think I have another question here with Thomas from ICED up the front row, front and center, please. We might wrap it up then. I know Siobhan would like to add a word or two before we finish.
Thank you. I'll be very short. I strongly agree with you that there are a lot of really, potentially successful solutions around, but you face challenges in getting them scaled and so on. There is a sort of first stage of first movers, and then getting to beyond that can be very hard. Now, you pointed to regulation as a kind of solution in this case. So I was wondering, could you elaborate slightly more? What does it take? What kind of regulation exactly are you looking for? What does it take to get that regulation to happen? Is there any particular channel you see that, like also you have a certain community here? Could you mobilize somehow to get it to happen, or what's the key?
Yes, I think we have a map of policies in one of our members in the Portuguese Federation that you can take a look. It's an interactive map that you can jump in, and there are a lot of good examples already on policies to promote. But I think we are missing sometimes the simple things. I will give this example. If this building doesn't use the municipality water system as the building on this side, how this building would pay the same tax for that system comparing to the other? So Germany have a lot of municipalities that have a lower level of taxes for the buildings that can deliver this kind of services, and this is only being fair. It's not something being like giving incentives. It's just being fair. If my building doesn't use the system that is built by municipality, I should not pay for that. So these simple things can really drive big changes. Obviously, there are the need, and sometimes there is the need, and we have different other Giving the Portuguese example, we have a environmental funding stream that you could apply and apply nature-based solutions to your home until 3,000 euros, maximum 75% of the investment. So this is a small amount, but it is something. It's a sign that the government is giving to the people. So small steps sometimes have very big consequences on the market. But I would say, in the beginning, just to be fair, if a municipality provides some kind of services, if a building provides some kind of services, should have the profit of this service.
Thanks, Paulo.